Hey, everybody, welcome to the Tip In Maple Leafs podcast, episode 217. And coming up on this one, the upper management of the Leafs finally spoke to the media. They gave their thoughts on the season. They took a lot of responsibility. A lot of responsibility was taken, and they gave a little peek into what might happen into the offseason. But were we really surprised by anything that was said? Or was it just more of the same? We're going to talk about it right here on 217 of the Tip In podcast.
Good is simply not good enough. Yeah, okay, we'll see. Let's hit the intro.
Really disappointing going forward here in the offseason as to, A, what players will be back, what kind of changes there may be, but really disappointing that the Maple Leafs are going home.
Hey, everyone. Welcome to the Tip In Maple Leafs podcast. I'm Chad.
I'm Dale.
So here we are. It is the day after the whole media thing went down with the three-headed monster. What do you think, Dale?
I don't know. Happy Mother's Day, first of all, to all your moms out there.
Happy Mother's Day, yes.
Mother's Day weekend. What do I think? Like, overall thoughts, I thought there was some truth told, but not specifics. And I guess I shouldn't have been expecting specifics, but there seemed like an openness and a willingness to change. That's kind of a new narrative because we've really never heard that before, I guess, other than Dubas last year before he got fired or left to go to Pittsburgh. He seemed open to it, and Shanny shut that fucking down real fast. But I don't know. Pelly, what did you think of Pelly being up? I've got some stuff here from Pelly, some quotes. I've got some quotes from Shanny, some quotes from Tree. We'll get into those here. But what did you think of him? Did he need to be up there? What do you think that was about?
He didn't really need to be up there because all he really said was, we're here. I want to win. The board wants to win. But everything else he said was, I've only been here 4 weeks.
Right. That's what I mean. So what are you doing up there then?
I think he was up there to show almost like Shanahan's not the be-all, end-all. There is another level above Shanahan.
Yeah.
Because let's face it.
Well, there always has been, but now there's a face to it.
Exactly. It gives a face to it because now you have to look at it, and I think all the fans are they're out for Shanahan blood, right? Everyone wanted this guy fired. Yeah. Included. So I think having him there was just sort of a way to show the fans hey, there's a little bit of a change, even though there's not a change. Do you know what I mean? Make it look different, even though it's not different.
Optics, eh?
Optics. Good word. That's a perfect word.
But yeah, okay. I guess fair enough, man. I'll jump right into some. Anything else you want to say off the top, or I'm going to start jumping right into.
No, you get right into it. Let's just get into it.
So Pelly opens it so each one of them, Pelly, Shanny, and Tree Living, they gave kind of opening statements. And then they opened it up to questions. I will say this. There was only maximum 8 questions asked. A room full of media, sports media, and they only literally let 8 people ask questions. I'm sorry. That is, what the fuck is your PR doing? The fans want to hear some questions answered, and you're only going to take off the floor 8 questions. I thought that was what are you doing? 45 minutes, you couldn't have sat up there for, an hour and 15 minutes. It was over in 45 minutes. I guess they said what was needed to be said, but I think there was a lot more people in that room that would have liked, media-wise, that would have liked to ask questions. That I just thought 8 questions, really 8 questions. I guess one for every year that they don't win, I guess is the new thing there, but.
Yeah. But I mean, how many times can you ask the same question over and over?
Okay.
And they weren't going to give you an answer.
No. Okay, fair. I just thought 10 questions, in the biggest hockey market on the planet, and you're only going to take 8 fucking questions. Come on, Maple Leaf Sports Entertainment.
I agree.
PR, whoever's running the PR there. Anyway, so Pelly opens it up with couple just, couple notes here, point form notes. that I took away from it. So like good is simply not good enough. I like that. I like that because they are good. And now he's saying like good is simply not good enough. Okay, well, how deep do you read into just that one statement alone? What is that? What is he saying there? Like what?
I don't know. I kind of find it just a cliche statement.
It is. It is. He went on to say, just win. Nothing else matters but winning. He didn't go 100%. He said 1,000% committed to it here. 1,000% committed to winning. And then he went on to talk about this. I believe you need these three things to win: skill, chemistry, and unity. So that's basically the end of it for Pelly. I'll get to him later with one of the questions, but that's kind of it in a nutshell with like his opening statement. So, I mean, what you wanted to hear or more for a guy who kept referencing, I've only been here 4 weeks.
Yeah, I honestly, I was expecting him to say more. Like I said in the other podcast, I was expecting him to be there to change Shanahan's role. But he really was just there to be like, here I am. Here I am. Everybody take a good look.
He gave them a vote of confidence.
Here I am. Yeah,
he gave them a vote of confidence, but not an extension. We can get to Shanny talking about his extension or lack thereof coming up. But yeah, I mean, I guess I took it the same way. Like it just to me was kind of like he kind of just was like showing.
Why are you there?
Well, I think it was just more of like, look at the size of my balls. Like now there's a new, like, who's got bigger, who's got the biggest balls up here? It's me. I'm the guy in charge.
That's what I'm saying. Like we said at the start, it's an optics thing. Like everyone thought Shanahan was pulling all the strings, and now this guy's coming in with a bigger nutsack, being like, hey, here I am.
That's right.
And that's all it was. And you know what? I will say this. Shanahan looked and sounded different than he has in years past.
Well, sure, for sure.
He looked more like a guy who has someone breathing over his shoulder.
Sure.
And when you got that nutsack hanging over your shoulder, that's what it's all about.
You got a big old sweaty nutsack perched right on your shoulder.
Just don't move.
You can't move. You're
it might, yeah. You don't know what that thing's gonna do.
No, don't turn around. Don't look at it. You just gotta let it rest there. But like,
you can feel it.
You can't. Yeah, you're gonna feel it all right. You can smell it too, and something's brewing there. But what'd you think of the skill, chemistry, and unity thing? Like, is that just like, oh, like those are his 3 pillars of like, you need skill with chemistry and unity? Like, what? Okay, like, yeah. Where'd you get? Like,
I took that as that was his way of sort of explaining, because then he went on to say how he thought Shanahan and Tree Living worked well together.
Yeah,
and I think that was just his way of buying time.
But they lost.
I know they lost, but he's like, I've only been here 4 weeks. These guys look good together. I'm a big believer in unity. Let's see how it goes.
I can't believe how many times he referenced the 4-week thing. Like, well, like again, going back to like, so what are you doing out there? You've only been there for 4 weeks, so you're just showing how big your balls are. That's all you're doing. Anyway, whatever.
Talking about European golf and the Ryder Cup, and nothing to do with the Toronto Maple Leafs.
He's talking about Liverpool, the soccer team in Liverpool.
I've only been here 4 weeks.
Yeah. He refused to comment on like the previous like 9 years of Shanny being here.
Yes,
he's like, well, he's like, I haven't been here in Toronto for 9 years, so I don't know. Oh, you don't know? Like you don't know what's happened with the hockey team for the last 10 years? Come on.
I can tell you this. Even if you didn't pay attention and you've only been in charge in 4 weeks, I'm pretty sure you know what's going on now.
Of course.
There's no way no one's filled you in on the horror down the hall that is the Toronto Maple Leafs.
No. You can't just base it off of, oh, what I saw in the last 4 weeks, Leafs Nation, reminded me of Liverpool United. And I'm like, dude, it's not about the last 4 weeks here. It's about, like, I know you weren't here for it. You weren't running the show at that time, but it's a collective sample size.
And we'll get into it, but I thought Tree Living was the best one of the 3 at this meeting. And I thought he said more about the past 8 years than Shanahan did.
100%.
Who's been at the helm of it. He said more about like real things about this team's problem.
100%. Like,
and he's been here 1 year.
Tree definitely, like, he's got, like, he knows what's going on here. Like, he knows. Like, so, like, he's not, like, even though he wasn't here, and he referenced it too, like, I haven't been here very long. Like, I wasn't here for the past kind of failures and whatever. But
he had some really good comments.
But he knew, like he knows that this team has not been able to get out of the first round or get over the hump, get anywhere close to a fucking cup. Anyway, I'm going to go to Shanny here. So just a couple bullet points. Shanahan comes out there and he says, this drove me mental, man. These first couple, I'm just like, what are you talking about? The ultimate responsibility is on me. The accountability is on me. Our playoff results have not been good enough. That's on me. The results we've had in the playoffs are unacceptable. When you see patterns and the results don't change, you have to adjust the way you think about things. We will look at everything this summer and we will consider everything this summer. We'll look at everything. We'll consider everything. But those first three comments about the accountability, the ultimate responsibility is on me. The accountability is on me. Our playoff results or lack thereof have not been good. Our playoff results have not been good. That's on me. So when you're like taking bullets, boom, it's on me. Boom, it's on me. Boom, it's on me. Why the fuck is he? Why are you still sitting there? Why the fuck are you still sitting there? That's my ultimate.
I have no idea.
That's my ultimate takeaway. Like he's just taking bullets. Boom, boom, boom. It's on me. It's on me. It's on me.
Not real bullets though. He's taking like invisible, self-inflicted bullets to make himself look good. I thought it was hilarious because he's like, "It's on me. It's on me. It's on me." So I fired Sheldon Keefe.
Well, but that's what I'm saying. Like when they're having these they had all week to get this figured out. They announced it on Thursday. They pushed it back to Friday. So all those meetings that, Tree Living, Shanny and Pelly were having leading up to like, how are we going to approach this press conference on Friday? If Shanny's sitting doing like a practice run or whatever, they probably did because I imagine they did a practice run.
They had everything they were going to say.
So when he's sitting there saying, it's on me, it's on me, it's on me, Keith Pelly's not like, okay, then like, why am I keeping you? You're saying everything is on you. Yep. You were at the head for the last everything. Tree Living, only 1 year. Pelly, 4 weeks. Yeah. So you, Shanny, the guy in the middle who's been here longer than anybody, if it's all on you, like, I'm sorry. He should have been fired. That's all. I'm going to say it right here. Like, I'm going to throw it to you, but I believe Shanahan should have been fired and Pelly should have went with Tree Living and Shane Doan to run. Like, they don't have to change titles. Tree Living still GM, Shane Doan assistant to the GM, whatever. Shane Doan and Brad Tree Living should now be running the hockey team, and Shanahan should be gone. I would have fired him. Take it.
Yeah, there's not much left to say, man.
Deserve to be. You imagine going into your boss and saying, "Well, it's on me. It's on me."
And this isn't. I mean, like Shanahan did explain later on some of the reasons why, because reporters asked him straight up, like, why now? Why not before? Mm-hmm. And he talked about how the players were younger. So he thought, you have to give them a chance or whatever.
Patience, he's saying.
Patience, yeah. But the fact that exactly what you said, he's basically admitting we're in a mess right now and it's my fault. And it's been a decade. Why am I still here?
Yeah.
What is it you say you do around here?
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
So like,
I get it. He tried to throw excuses around. He beat around the bush on almost every question that was asked of him.
Of course.
He didn't really answer anything. So I had the exact same thought. Then why are you here? I was actually listening to it. Like I was listening to the radio thing and talking out loud as Shanahan was talking and saying those exact words. Like he'd answer a question. And I'd be like, then why are you still the president?
Like, it doesn't make a ton of sense.
It didn't make sense at all.
Like he's had the eyes on this team the longest. He's got his fingerprints on it all over the place, up and down the longest.
Admitted to it.
So for me, it would have been like Keefe. I would have fired Keefe regardless. I'm not letting him off the hook, but Shanny as well. Sorry, 10 years. It's not good enough. In this market, it's not fucking good enough. You're out, Shanny. You're fucking out. One more chance and it doesn't work again, then you're out anyway. So, okay, one more chance. Great. But fuck one more chance. It didn't work. You run it back. Didn't work. It's time for Brad. You've got the keys now. You and Shane run it. Report to me. Big balls, Pelly, right in the office. Right.
Yeah, for sure. I don't understand, but
like, do you agree with that?
Yeah, I agree with that. But we can say Pele has as a big nutsack on him. But the bottom line is maybe it's not that big because he didn't do it. He didn't do it. He didn't fire him.
No,
he kept it, and he did the same thing the Toronto Maple Leafs do. Well, I'm just going to take a look at it, and it's just all the timing is so stupid. Like, he comes in now when things are a mess. Last season, Tree Living came in. He came in too late because by that he comes in the summer. What, he's going to trade Mitch Marner when he just walks through the door?
No,
like everything has just been off timing, and that's all under one guy's watch.
Yep.
Who fired the GM at the end of the season and hired Tree Living? Like, if you were going to get rid of Dubas, why didn't you do it earlier?
He didn't even want to, though. That's the whole thing. There was a contract extension on the table for Kyle Dubas. Shanahan was bringing him back. Dubas forced his hand. Dubas is like, well, I've got this other thing cooking with the Pittsburgh Penguins. It's going to be more money, and I'm going to have your job title.
Dubas wanted to change the team.
Of course.
Like, he wanted to trade one of the core four. He wanted to shake things up.
I also think he wanted to take some of Shanny's power. And that's where that's where the real conflict became in. He's like,
he didn't want to answer to Shanahan anymore.
Why would you?
Like, he's like, I wanted, every time I want to do something with this team, I got to get you to rubber stamp it, which is kind of weird because if you look at other presidents of hockey operations, yeah, they do rubber stamp things, but they don't have like such a control over the building of the team and the players on the ice. Like, the president looks over hockey operations and the general manager builds the team, and you trust that general manager to do it. But this whole time, Shanahan's always been like, he's kind of been like the secret general manager behind the whole thing, which isn't normal for a president of hockey operations. Like, you hire people to do their job and you trust them to do it. He's never done that.
I don't even think it's secret, Chad. Like, I think we've known for a long time that everything runs through Shanahan.
Yeah. So I think last summer Dubas just had enough, and he's like, look, we have to break up the core. We have to do this, and I need you to step out of the way. And he's like, and by the way, I got this other offer in Pittsburgh. And you're right. Shanahan's like, well, get the fuck out. But but Shanahan threw a grenade into it. So your only chance to trade Mitch Marner without a no movement clause went down the toilet. And that was it.
Yeah. No,
he
you're
made
right.
a fucking mess of everything. And he was up on stage still talking on Friday.
So last thing on Shanny for now, circle back here. I'll get to Tree in a second, but like, let's just be honest. In the 10-year, he was hired in the spring of 2024. It's now, 2014. It's now the spring of 2024. 10 years on the job. He's on his third general manager. Lou Lamoriello, Kyle Dubas, Brad Tree Living, Babcock, Keefe. He's about to go on his third coach. So 3 GMs, 3 coaches, no success, 1 round in 10 years, and you still have your fucking job. I'm sorry, dude. It just doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense. However you cut it. There's no one that could sit there and explain to me, like, Keith Pelly was calling him like, well, he's a champion. He's a winner, whatever. Yeah, when he played, his managerial success is a fucking 0. He has no managerial success.
Exactly. When he was a player.
Yeah, he was a champion when he played. Great. Dude, he started referencing fucking the old Detroit days and like oh, what are you talking about? This team ain't the Detroit Red Wings from the 1990s.
Shanahan was a great player, but those Red Wings teams were stacked.
Of course.
Like, a lot of people could have won the cup on those teams. It blows my mind that he is still up there. Like, that he was still up on stage and still talking. I don't even know. And he got asked about it, I think, a little bit, but he doesn't really get into the answers. But I would love to know about after Marner and Matthews, and they came out of their entry-level deals and they were given massive contracts. Like, if he is rubber stamping everything, they waited until training camp to sign Marner. Like, who was it that finally broke and said, give him this?
Dude, what a great
was it the general manager or was it Shanahan? I would love to know who did that, because that was a terrible contract. Who did it? Who's that?
That would have been a great question asked on Friday morning. If one of the fucking
he wouldn't have answered it.
No, but he would have skirted around it. But if one of the fucking reporters stepped up, one of the media guys stepped up, like Feschuk, I could see somebody Simmons.
But like you said, only 8 of them were allowed to ask. So
no, I know, but 2 of them were Feschuk and Simmons, and those guys usually.
But if you only had one question, because that's what they do, right? You probably have a pocket full of questions, and they're like, "You got one. You're probably going to be whatever you think is the best question, whatever you think is the hot topic that will sell a newspaper today."
Well, I think a real good question would have been, Shanny, when all the core four signed their contracts, how involved were you in the contract negotiations?
That's what I want to know.
Yeah, that's a great question. Like, how involved were you? I'd love to see if he was like, it was more Kyle and like push the blame around, or if he was like, we all know he was heavily involved, like obviously, but I would just like to see the words come out of his mouth.
It just seemed really weird that like Marner, they made a huge mistake not signing Marner earlier to a low number at a long cap hit before he had that great season in his third year.
8 times 8 would have done it.
But it just seems weird to me that they wait all summer. They're going back and forth. It's getting murky in the news and everything. And there's all the talk about his dad and all this shit. And he wants to be paid like Austin Matthews. And
he wanted the same money as his buddy, right?
You hold out the whole time. So the general manager's like, I'm not doing it. Like, I'm not doing it. Then training camp starts, and all of a sudden it just breaks. And Marner gets exactly what he wants. And my question to Shannon would be like, who finally broke?
Yeah,
like, did Dubas finally say, we've got to do this? And you're like, okay, if you think so. Or did you go to Dubas and be like, I don't care, get this kid on the ice?
It's a great question. I think it's probably a mixture of both, but I would just love the question asked to him just to see what he'd
because it was a massive mistake. There are people signing today, 6 years later. There are people signing today better than Mitch Marner for less money.
Yeah, no, I know.
That was a terrible contract.
He'd say we were all part of it, like we were all making decisions. Like he wouldn't give a real answer.
I'm responsible for everything, so that's why everyone else is at fault. Like that's big. Dubas is gone, like you said. Lou's gone, Dubas is gone, Hunter's gone, Keefe's gone, Babcock's gone. Mm-hmm. But it's my fault.
Everybody's gone but him. He's the only one, and he's saying it's all his fault. Yeah. So, but he's still there. It just doesn't make any sense. I'm going to move on to Tree Living here.
Yep.
Not a ton on Tree. Like you said off the top, I thought he was the best at like just answering the most honest out of all of them. But he said like not good enough, and everything needs to be on the table this offseason. We need to find a way to score playoff style goals. Our special teams need to be way better, and our goaltending needs to be better than the opposing team's goaltender that we're playing in the playoffs on a nightly basis. So, all honest stuff and whatever. So yeah, like I don't have a lot on Tree Living here other than like I've become more comfortable with him in the position to actually think like, yeah, this guy might actually be able to change this team. Maybe not. It's a difficult task. You look at the money and the contracts and the no moves and all that, like not an easy, like he doesn't have an easy job here. It's not an easy fix.
No. And a lot of people point to his Calgary days and some mistakes he made, but people learn from the mistakes. Number one. Number two, the resources he has in Toronto are a lot different than Calgary.
Yeah.
And also like the ability to like pull the money you can pay on assistant coaches, on people behind the scenes, all that stuff can really go in his way if he uses it correctly.
Yep.
Dubas used to do that. He used to spend a lot of money on weird things. But the quote about the goalies that I loved when he said, because it's so true, they talk about this core four and how talented they are and everything. And he basically was like, there's a pattern happening when every time you play a playoff series, the goalie on the other team is the best goalie in the playoffs.
Yeah, sure.
Like there's a pattern happening. And I love that Tree said that out loud.
Yeah. Like, but he also didn't sugarcoat that they can't score and they can't score playoff style goals.
He wasn't saying that they ended up. What he was saying was you're making the other goalie the best goalie in the playoffs.
Yeah.
He's like, that's a weird trend.
Yeah.
That every time you play a goalie, they have a 950 save percentage. And I was like, yes, finally. Because they're always making excuses. Oh, it was Carey Price. It was Vasilevsky. Oh, Jeremy Swayman's just so good, we can't beat him. Oh, Florida's having no problem beating the shit out of Jeremy Swayman right now.
Got yanked.
Yeah. Anyway, I just thought Tree was pretty open and honest.
Boston will be lucky to – Boston caught them sleeping in game one. Boston will be lucky to win another game in that series as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah.
I think it would have went the same way with the Leafs. But anyway, some of the best questions I thought were asked, and I only got a couple of them, but someone asked Pelly, why did the coach get fired for I think this was a Simmons question. And I still don't like Simmons, but I admire that he just doesn't give a fuck. I do admire that. Like he's just like, I'll ask a fucking tough question because Mark Mark Masters and a lot of these other guys are out here throwing fucking lob balls. I like some, like, let's get into it. So he asked he went to Pelly. He's like, Simmons is like, why did, this might not have been Simmons, by the way, but one of these ones did come from Simmons. But he said, someone said to Pelly, why did the coach get fired for having one series win in 5 years? But the president, who has one series win in 10 years, no problem.
Fair question.
Great question, right? And that's where Pelly went into like,
I've only been here 4 weeks.
Only been here 4 weeks, but he was standing up for Shanny. He's like, well, he's a winner. He's a proven winner, like multiple Stanley Cups. And like, yeah, as a player, Keith, so read the room, bud. Like, management success is zero. Absolutely fucking zero. So anyway, another one was so I just thought that was a great question. Another one that stood out for me, this might have been Simmons asked. I think this was actually Simmons to Shanny. He asked about the team's record in game sevens. And he said the lack of scoring in game sevens. Why would we believe you can change this now when you haven't been able to change it for the last 8 years in the playoffs? Another great question. And what did Shanny, you know what Shanny did a lot here when they got to the question answer period, he did a lot of like just backtracking to like, in my previous statement, in my opening statement, right? Instead of really going, like, he didn't answer it. Like he went back to referring to.
He pushed it to a lot of, I can't get into specifics.
I
can't talk about that right now. Look, it wouldn't be right to do that. It would have just been nice to get some sort of tidbit of honesty. Like, it would have been really nice for him to be like, you know, we have great players on this team. Absolutely. Star players. But together as a group, I was wrong. They can't get the job done.
Yeah, well, he's never going to say that.
No, he just won't say that. But he's stuck up for these guys for 10 years. It's got to be tough. Like, imagine going to bat for someone for 10 years and they just keep failing and failing and failing and failing. And then finally you're like, shit, I've got to admit I was wrong.
Yeah. So the last thing I got, I think it was Jonas Siegel asked the last question. And he said,
he had a good question
to Shanny. I think he said, do you still think this core group can win? And if so, why? And, you know, he did, again, he kind of retracted to Shanny's big thing here was like, we're open to everything. Everything will be on the table. That's kind of,
and not get into specifics.
No,
everything's on the table, but we're not going to tell you what.
Blanket statement. We're open to anything. Everything's on the table this offseason. Blanket statement, which is different because he never, like, that is the first time that he has gone down that road. But to me, like, I just would have loved a little bit more. Well, so they'll look at anything to make the team better, I guess.
But isn't that your job 24/7? Like, yeah. I don't know. Well,
he says
it should always be, even if you win the Stanley Cup, what's your job this offseason? We're going to look at everything and anything to make this team better.
He said in the presser, he's like, every day when I wake up and every night when I go to bed, the only thing on my mind is what can I do to make this hockey team better? So, all right, Shanny, fucking prove it. Prove it. If you want to truly make it better, fucking prove it. Do something. Do something drastic. Do something big.
And that's the thing, right?
Yeah.
You can have 100 press conferences, but until you actually do something, no one gives a shit.
Talk is cheap, right? Like, that's like he can go out there and say whatever the fuck he wants to say, but until you actually do something different, then what do we got here?
Yeah, absolutely.
Anyway, I got a couple other quick things, but
yeah, man.
Anything else? Like, I'm kind of done with the presser. I just got a couple other things that you know what would have been nice to say or to hear, and I know no one's going to go out there and say this, but like, imagine one of them was just like, not clutch enough, like, just not clutched. We need some clutch. Like, you look at Matthew Tkachuk, you look at Pasternak, you look at McKinnon, you look at the teams that are winning right now. Clutch. There's a clutch gene in all of them, all of these individual players. And you look at Marner and you look at JT, and it's like incredible players. Not clutch.
No,
not clutch. You would never describe those guys with like, oh man, that guy, how clutch is he? Right, comes through in the fucking clutch. Never.
No, I saw a stat on, and it's bad, man. Like, it is bad, Toronto's playoff numbers, but just game 7 specifically, like, you look at Connor McDavid, there's a list out there of points and like you say, clutch timing goals in game sevens with the stars of this league. And the bottom of that list, just those stars, it's Maple Leafs. Austin Matthews, no goals in a game 7. Mitch Marner, like a few points in a game 7. I think the only Maple Leaf who was even in the middle of the pack on that list was Willie Nylander.
Yeah.
That's it. Like you name Connor McDavid, Nate McKinnon, like when the game's on the line, they just something comes to life in these guys.
Oh, dude.
And our guys just disappear. And you're right. It would have been really nice for someone to say something like that, like clutch. That would have been great.
Dude, Makar and McKinnon, it's just like it's not even fair, really. It's really not. Like they've got an average goaltender, but they just refuse to let that team lose. They just refuse. Like it's
and even watching Florida Boston, like just how hard the Leafs made it that they just couldn't score. We talked about it the whole series, like, oh, they just can't score. They can't get in the middle. Florida, no problem. Like, absolutely no problem getting to the middle of the ice. No problem getting shots on Swayman. No problem getting traffic in front. Honestly, making it look easy these past 2 games. I'm like, what the hell? And Toronto's supposed to be this firepower offense?
One question that I forgot about, but it just popped into my head right now.
Simmons again?
No, Mike Zeisberger.
Oh, yeah, I like Mike.
And so do I. He's been doing it forever. He's been doing it forever, right? He says, I don't have it in front of me, but I'm just like, it was something along the lines of like, Sheldon, the players came out, right? I don't know, not Sheldon, sorry. I don't know who he asked it to, Shanny, I think, but I'm not 100% sure. It might have been Pelly even, but he came out and it was along the lines of like the players on Monday were talking about how, they were close. They were right there. And Zeisberger, what's his name? Mike Zeisberger.
Yeah, Zeisberger.
He's like, what? He basically was like, what are they talking about? What are they close to? He's like, they're close to winning a round. He's like, they're nowhere close to winning a championship. So can you tell me what they're close to? And they were, all 3 of them were just kind of like dumbfounded, like, well, we don't know. Like Shanny kind of skirted around. He's like, well, they just finished the hard fought series. And like, but like none of them had the audacity to be like, oh, they were close to a cup or anything like that.
Could you imagine if they said that? That quote would be.
But a great question and a fair question, because when you hear out of a lot of the guys' mouths, like, oh, we're right there. We feel we're real close. Well, what the fuck are you close to? I'd love to see, like, Zeisberger should have said, like, how close do you guys think they are? Like, how close are they really?
It's so true. And you know what's crazy, man?
They're nowhere close. That's the answer.
Absolutely. I went back and watched the post games because I was going to do a thing on the podcast where I was going to play clips and have you guess which year it was from.
I would never,
like, of their post game interviews.
I would never.
But you know what? By doing that, you know what I stumbled across? That they actually, back in the day, the players took accountability. Like, if you watch early on when they were losing, they're like, we've got to be better. We've got to do this. And in the last few years, it's changed. Last few years, it's been like, it's your fault. Like, it's the media's fault. We're doing fine. Everything's fine. And
yeah,
so I don't know. Like, just looking at it, my first thought was, isn't this the management's job? Is when you start to see this 3 years ago to be like, all right, we got to start to shake things up. These guys are starting to blame. They're not taking responsibility.
No accountability. No responsibility.
And it's like after the Florida series last year, it was like, well, we won a round. Like, go back and listen to those post games. They talk about like beating Tampa was winning the cup, and you shouldn't be mad at them. It's crazy. The mentality on these guys.
Maybe Berube will get them like some accountability, because I'm calling it right now. He's going to be the next coach of the Toronto Maple Leafs 100%. There's zero doubt in my mind.
Right.
But dude, it's a no-brainer. Like, I think Drager was saying there's 2 guys on the list, McLennan or whatever, Todd McLennan or whatever, and Berube. He said Drager was like, they've reached out to some other people. McClellan, whatever. So I hope they don't hire him, because I can't say his name. But Drager said that they have reached out to some other people. But what do you think? You think they're hiring some dude from the fucking AHL to come up here and do this again? That's not fucking happening. It's gonna be a guy with a large voice who's like, yo, when I speak, listen the fuck up. And they need that, in my opinion. Last thing I got.
Tree has a tendency to hire shitty coaches, by the way.
Well, but yeah, okay. Well, we'll see.
But like I said, everyone can make mistakes, and you get it right.
It's going to be Berube. It's just, I think It's going to be Brewery. He wants the job. I think they want him there. I just think that's a little bit of a harder, tough ass. I don't mind it.
Yeah.
We'll see what happens. But last thing, I'm going to close on this. Moving off of Mitch Marner, I know some people still, want Mitch to stay. Ship has sailed for me. I'm over the Mitch Marner thing. Like, I don't care the fuck about his regular season dancing around and making like Cinderella fucking plays. Don't give a shit.
Against bottom feeding teams.
Yeah, I just don't care. Like, I don't care. Like, his playoff performance, I just don't see him changing into the type of guy that's going to help this team win in the playoffs. So here's a little something that might make a Mitch Marner, and I feel like a lot of the fan base is on board for like Mitch enough. We've seen enough. But here's a little something that might make Mitch Marner leave in town a little bit easier on the fan base. We got a little cat right now called Easton Cowan, the OHL MVP of the season. He just had London Knights are in the OHL final right now against the Oshawa Generals. Game 1 the other night, 5 points for Easton Cowan in game 1 of the OHL final. He had points in, I think, the OHL schedule. I think he played in 53 games this year, Easton Cowan. He had points in 49 of those hockey games. He went on an absolutely crazy run of like 30 plus games. It was like 30, approaching 40 games with points in every game, which I guess you're going to get when you have points in 49 of 53 fucking hockey games. So anyway, I've watched some highlights from that game 1 against the Generals. I don't know if you saw it or not. Dude, this kid looks like an absolute steal and probably going to be a superstar in this league. He just looks absolutely incredible. And there's a lot of fight in that dog. He's not just like ditzy doodle, blah, blah, blah. Not afraid to hit, not afraid to get fucking dirty, the dirty areas. So wanted to kind of just go out on a bit of a positive. This kid looks like the real deal. Can he jump in next year and help this team? I think he can. Like, what else are you going to have to prove in the if the London Knights win the OHL final, go on to win the Memorial Cup, the kid wins the MVP of the fucking league? What are you going back to the OHL for?
That's a great point, man. And also a really good reason why I am glad that Tree Living didn't double down on this team and get rid of his first round pick this year. Because you might get another Easton Cowan with that.
What a wild. I had never heard of Easton Cowan, but what that looks like.
That's what I'm saying.
You pick a guy late in the first round, he goes on out the next season and he wins the most valuable player in the Ontario Hockey League. That's wild shit, man.
It can happen, but if you start trading away your first round picks for, and I'm not against that, but if you look at this core and what they've done, they did not deserve you to trade that first round pick for anybody.
No. But anyway, that's
anything else?
No. Do you want to tee up like maybe the next podcast? What we're
so if they hire a coach, we'll come on and we'll do a podcast and talk about that. We don't know when that's going to happen, but we're also going to have a couple special episodes coming up to wrap up.
Probably one.
Okay, one special episode to wrap up the season. We're going to come on. We're going to talk about who should move, who should go, what we might look at it, how the team might look at it. But tune in. It'll be a good one.
Yeah, for sure.
You get to hear it, and we'll wrap up another losing season as Toronto Maple Leafs fans. But anyway, for the Tip and Maple Leafs podcast, don't forget to follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube at the Tip and Maple Leafs podcast, on Twitter at Tip and Pod, TikTok, Tip and Podcast. If you're on YouTube, hit like and subscribe, leave a comment, and ring the bell so you get notified every time we post a video. And until next time, I'm Chad.
I'm Dale.
We will.
Hey, look, said it earlier. Talk is cheap. Will we actually finally see some significant change with this team this summer? We will see. Thanks for watching, guys. Thanks for listening. Like Chad just said, please thumb up this video on YouTube and subscribe to our YouTube channel. We really appreciate it. It really helps us out a lot. We'll be back with a couple pods next week for sure. Catch you later.